I'm gonna hand this whole thing over in just a minute to Tony and Melody Olson. How many people know Tony and Melody? A handful of you. Okay, so some of you, this will be new. You guys raising your hands in the back. Good job. Good job. Yeah, you almost know them. Okay. So my kids were pretty little last time these guys were here. When's the last time you were here? 8 years? Okay. So it has been 8 years since they were here. COVID got in the way of a visit in between there. Yeah, is that what happened? Okay. So Tony and Melody serve at a place called Black Forest Academy in Kandern, Germany, where there's a boarding school for missionary kids, primarily missionary kids. You got a few others in there as well, right? Largely kids whose parents are serving as missionaries in places where they don't want to have their school-age children, where they're not able to put them in school, or it's maybe just not quite safe. And so this school serves those families so that they can continue to minister. Tony is a graduate of Elkton High School. One year behind, just in case you're wondering who the old guy is in the room, it's not him. He was 1 year behind me in school. Met Melody at Black Forest, right? No? Okay, you can fill us in on that. I've been telling the story wrong. So anyway, they have brought some videos, and then they're going to talk a little bit about what it is they do and who it is they serve, and then there'll be a time at the end of it to ask some questions, and I'll pack the mic around and let y'all do that. So I'm not going to talk anymore, guys. Come on up.
Yeah, so we're glad to be here. It's been quite a while, and kind of give you a little introduction of what we do today, and open time up for some questions. If you have any questions that you want to, there's more of an informal time to get to know us and what we do there. So we'll start with Melody. She'll tell a bit about what she's been doing, and her testimony.
I'm going to start with my testimony. Yeah. When I had the privilege of growing up in a strong Christian family right next to Prairie Bible Institute, which is a Bible school very missions-minded. And when I was 12 in grade 8, I felt the Lord calling me in a missions conference to go forward and to say that I would be involved in missions. And at the time, I went forward with tears, and I hoped God would never call me to Africa because I didn't want to go there. I didn't know what it would be, but I said, whether I go somewhere or whether I fully support missions, financially and prayerfully, I will do my part. Around that time, my aunt went to Black Forest Academy as a resident assistant in one of the dorms, and she would write long letters saying all the interesting things that she was involved in, and at the end, Melody, when you grow up, you should come be an RA. And I thought, well, at the time, I was involved in being a counselor at summer camps, summer Bible camps, and I loved being a counselor, and so I thought, maybe that would be good. In high school, I started teaching piano, and I loved teaching piano. And that made me think, I wonder if Black Forest Academy needs piano teachers. So I started Bible college, and after my first year of Bible college, I was working in a Christian bookstore, and one day the host was talking with someone else and said, the best way to encourage a missionary is to go and visit them and see them in their world there and what they do daily and what their ministry is. And I thought, perfect. I should go to Black Forest Academy, visit my 2 uncles and aunts who were there, and see if it's a good fit for me. So my sister and I were able to go at Christmas. I saw the residence program, the dorms that they have for the older teenagers, and got to talk with the piano teacher, and she said, "Oh, we need another piano teacher. We're not able to teach all the kids that want to take piano lessons. So go back and finish your degree and then come back." So then that was my goal. And I graduated from Bible college in '91. I had already finished my piano teaching associate's diploma, and I stayed in Three Hills for a year to teach piano and lifeguard and teach swimming, and that's when I met Tony. He had come up after college, and so we got to know each other that year. At the end of the year, I was heading to BFA. He didn't know where God was leading him, and I went to BFA in '92 as a piano teacher and an accompanist for choirs. And I never thought that we would be there this long. When you're 22, you're only thinking about, the next couple years. And it's not always been easy for our kids to grow up as missionary kids. Sometimes, they've said things that were difficult, like not knowing their relatives here in North America very well. And we've said, sorry, like we didn't think really far ahead, and they've been quick to say, no, it's okay. We're talking about these feelings, but we really are glad that we could grow up where we did and experience the things that we did. And so there are pros and cons to being missionary kids, but we've definitely learned a lot in the last years of what the needs are, and BFA is very, very conscious, always being conscious of trying to meet the needs of these kids and help them to be able to be what God wants them to be and prepared for what He has for them.
So maybe a little about myself. As Eric mentioned, I graduated from Elkton, and before that my dad had been a pastor sort of all over, North Dakota, Minnesota, Alberta, and came here to Elkton. He was a pastor in Kellogg, and then later attended here. And I spent the last few years of high school in Elkton. And then while I was here, really began to feel God's call to missions, and that I was interested. I had, ever since I was little, I wanted to be a paleontologist. Of course, all kids wanted. And I was really interested in science and that sort of thing, but I also felt, what? As a Christian, I feel like I need to do something that will further God's kingdom. And so I didn't know much in the way of what that would look like. But I thought, I want to go to Bible school. I want to go on and prepare for something in missions. So I went to a Christian college at Bethel in Minnesota and got a degree in missions, cultural anthropology, and Bible. And during that time, we took a choir tour, and I got to travel around Europe, and my cousin was at Black Forest Academy. And I got to go and see her graduation and get introduced to the school, and thought, this is an interesting place. I've always had sort of an interest in academia, and this is that combined with missions. And then graduated, and at this point, missions didn't accept you if you still had student loans. So I had to work for a while to pay that off. My parents had moved up to Alberta, so I moved up there to get a job. That's where I met Melody. And she was introduced as, this is Melody Meyer, and she is heading to Black Forest Academy. And I thought, oh yes, I know that place. I should keep an eye on her. And then she went off to BFA, and I continued working and paid off my bill, and then I was able to head to Black Forest Academy a year later in '93, and then we were married in '94, and we've been there ever since. And started out as I went up there working as a resident assistant, which each of the dormitories that BFA has, I think at that point they had about 6, has a set of dorm parents, and then they have usually right out of college, young people that are helping out as single RAs, residence assistants in the dorms. So I started out as that and worked in the dorms for 6 years. And then as our kids were getting older, I thought, you know what, my schedule is going to be totally different once they start school. And I've always been curious about teaching. I had some great examples of teachers here that I look up to. And I thought, you know what, I might be interested in that. So I came back, got my teaching degree for a year, and since 2000, I've been teaching in mostly history in the middle school and the high school. And I've taught pretty much every subject, every department there at BFA except for math. And yeah, that's not my skill set. So it's been really great to see how the Lord has kept us there for all of these I've been there 30 years now, and teaching in the history department, and a place that's just absolutely amazing for teaching history. So we've got stuff all over in Europe that, as I teach European history, I can just say, yeah, look outside and see this or that. We have a little video that gives you kind of an overview of what BFA's core values are, and interview some of the students as to where they're coming from and what kind of students BFA attracts, or what sort of parents decide to send their kids there. Most of our students' parents are missionaries in Europe. We have a lot that come from North Africa, and we have a fair number that come from the Middle East. About 60% are Americans, and about 20% are Koreans. There's a large missionary community coming out of South Korea, and they get to go to places where North American missionaries wouldn't be accepted. So we've had a lot of missionaries from Korea in Central Asia, in Mongolia, in Western China, places like that, where Americans wouldn't be welcome. So it's cool to see them having their ministry as well, but there is no Korean MK school. And so they tend to send their kids to these English-speaking MK schools. And we have a lot of them. And then the other 10%, 20% of our students come from all other places, Europeans, Canadians, Australians, English, people like that. So this video, we'll see if this works here, gives an idea of what are BFA's core values, and they use some of these kids to talk about what these are and some of their experiences. Okay, so this didn't work.
At BFA, we have 5 core values that are the foundation of who we are. So there is truth, transformation, influence, community, and global mindedness. The Bible is the truth, like what the Bible says about you is true, and that's who you are. Like, you have to have your identity set in Christ. Truth is, it's so like integrated into culture and community. All of the teachers believe that the Bible is the truth, which is so helpful. I think what is so beautiful about BFA is all the staff that are here want to be here and they want to serve, and you can just see like how God has changed them, and honestly like how they're living a Christ-like life and how they display that and shine that through. like sometimes I'd just be sitting in class and I'm just like, how does this, there's no way that this person like cares for me so much, but they do. And that's just God, you know? Like, wow.
Transformation is what we hope the truth will do in all of us, both students and staff. Coming to BFA as a dorm student, you have to kind of take everything into your hands. That includes your spiritual life. It's not really like a tagline with your parents anymore. Upon taking the truth in for myself, that has changed a lot in my relationship with God, because I'm not just this passive, oh, my parents are missionaries, so I'm a Christian too, you know. That doesn't make you a Christian, because I have to take what I learned from the Bible, what I learned from BFA, and to take it into my life and accept Christ myself, not because my parents did it, but because I want to.
By now you're starting to see the way these core values build on one another. They form a roadmap for what the BFA student experience should be. I've been here since I was 5, and every year I watch each senior class and each opening ceremonies, and I always got to see the impact the student body president had and the speech they would make right at the beginning of the year. Yeah, it made me want to leave something behind as well, and leave BFA better than I found it. Yeah, a lot of the events we plan, I've sort of been able to see the way that our attitude that we put into it comes out of it, and that as we have a fall party or a spring party coming up, we're able to see that the time and the effort and the joy that we put into it, really, it comes out on the other side. But I do think being student body president is more than just event planning, but it's also setting an example, the way that you live day to day, being an example for others to encourage hope and positivity and enthusiasm. It's a really cool thing to watch that multiply, and the seeds that you're planting are growing.
I've always lived in a community world where when I was in Alaska, we lived in a Native American village, so they're all very community based. Also, I'm Korean, so that's also very community based, and you try to help your neighbors and the people around you. And I guess coming to BFA, I don't know what I was expecting, but when I came here, I was just in shock, because it was the first time I was in a community where that my teachers wanted me to succeed, and all my friends and the people around me were just oh, you should try this because I think it would be good for you, or they just really pushed me to be the best me possible, and I think that's what's shocked me the most. I feel more loved and encouraged to do things. If I want to explore a new hobby, I have 3 people I can talk to, because we're just so diverse here and everyone knows about everything. Or if I have a question about my faith, that's been one of the big things since coming here. I never had a place where I could talk about my faith. Here I can ask my dorm parents, or the chaplains, or any of the Bible teachers, and I just feel everyone wants to support you and help you to become a better you, and I think that's the amazing thing about community.
Global mindedness, isn't it whenever you basically have a sense for someone else, or you demonstrate not just who you are, but you also care for others? Is that what global mindedness really is? It's this process of having empathy, or this process of putting yourself last, but not in a sense of feeling guilty, but also having this sense of just not thinking about yourself. Isn't that what global mindedness is? Being a Brazilian, I thought that didn't define me, but at the same time, it does plays a huge role in my life. But coming here, I was like, wait a minute, my identity shouldn't be where I lived or where I was born at, but it should be in Christ. I believe BFA has impacted me in so many ways, but the main one that comes to mind is the importance of being humble in all areas. I thought I was this, but in reality I can't be this. God has to be always on top, but I have to represent him and be an instrument from him in this place. So I feel like BFA opened my eyes.
Truth is, it's the foundation. It influences the way that we see each other, the way we see ourselves, which then seeps into life at BFA.
Through my years at BFA, I learned how to listen and discern what the truth is. When you learn something and when you take in something, it changes something inside.
Influence. It doesn't start big. It has to start with an individual. As others see you, it grows and it multiplies, and the intentionality and the effort that you put into it will eventually grow and produce something bigger than yourself.
I think BFA has helped me prepare, as a person, because I'm just surrounded by so many cultures and people, and I get to be a part of their little part of their community, and that just helps me be more open to the world.
BFA opened my eyes because everyone's so unique, coming from different countries and backgrounds. You can see God's image through everyone, even though they are from different places. I'm glad I learned the importance of having humility.
We look for truth.
And allow it to transform us.
So that we can be an influence.
In whatever community we belong to.
We're citizens of this world God created. We are Black Forest Academy.
We are Black Forest Academy.
We are Black Forest Academy.
So it kind of gives an overview of what BFA has set as its core values, what truths they want to bring in as we look through the curriculum, as we do the things that we teach these kids. These are the areas that we want to focus on and the areas that we want to see the kids particularly develop in as they grow and as we disciple them and help them to become those who are already Christians, those who become better followers of Christ. And there is a certain element of evangelism as well, because a lot of these kids may come from a Christian family, but they haven't really made a decision for themselves yet. And so that's another thing that we try to bring out and say, okay, this is a chance for you to make your faith your own as we're going through the courses, as we go through whether it's history or math or science or whatever classes. And we have, in our house, our kids are all grown. They're now off. 3 of the 4 are married and have their own families. And so in our house, we still have extra rooms. And we've opened it up for young teachers who are just coming to Black Forest Academy who want to board with us. And one of them came 5 years ago, and he's a biology teacher. And he's been just a great teacher there. And the next little video that BFA made is actually made by our mission, Teach Beyond, and sort of asking him, why is it that you teach? What is your biblical basis for being able to teach the things that you do? And so the next video shows Harrison, is his name. He's a biology and environmental science teacher. And this gives kind of an overview of a day in the life of the teacher, perhaps. And so this isn't working. If you guys could start that back there. So it's on the next slide, actually.
All right, come on in. My name is Harrison Elkins, and I teach high school science here at Black Forest Academy in Kandern, Germany. What I want my students to know in environmental science is for them to recognize the responsibility they have of stewardship and how that flows out of the fact that they were created in the image of God. When we start the class, we start off in Genesis and we look at how God created humanity and what the purpose was and the instructions that he first gave Adam and Eve. An important element of that is that we're representing God, not just to other people, but we're representing God to the earth as well. And we are taking care of his creation with the same attitude that he takes care of his creation.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 deer. Is that right? Yeah, we've got 8 deer. I like this game. All right, and we have 4 resources. All right. All right. So we're over-exhausting our resources. Look
I had a student who started carrying a latex glove in his pocket so that when he would walk outside and he saw trash on the side of the road, he could pick it up and throw it away. And I just was so impressed by that. And that's really what I want my students to walk away with, is when they're outside and they see an area of land or grass or whatever, that they don't just walk by it and say, that's somebody else's responsibility, but for them to say, no, actually that belongs to my God and my Creator, and so therefore I'm going to take care of it. I take responsibility for his creation. I think another way that we carry out that stewardship command is found in one of the other instructions that God gives Adam, which is to name the animals. And that continues even today as we're discovering new species and we're naming them, and just through how I teach my students to classify and identify different animals and plants. And I just remind them it's all going back to that first instruction of naming the animals. And I think that that's because you can't take care of things if you don't know what their names are. They get to go out and observe all sorts of species. We've had thousands of observations that we've made. Yeah, they're not just learning about science, they're actually doing science. They're making connections, and what I want them to walk away with is, by making those connections and learning more about where they live, they can take that a step further and start to take care of God's creation in this area. And they can take that mentality, they can take that attitude wherever they end up going in life. Teaching at Black Forest Academy, teaching at an international school is such a unique opportunity. So many different countries, they all come in speaking so many different languages. You know, that's widened my perspective of the kingdom. That's enabled us to study science to an even greater degree. Just the other day, we were looking at the genetics and the biology of certain African tribes, and looking at how the genetics kind of correlates to different agricultural practices and stuff. And so I was naming and listing off these African tribes, and just seeing the students' hands go up and their faces light up as I realized, like, they've actually lived with these people. You know, they're starting to talk about, like, oh yeah, like I know this tribe, and they do this with their agriculture, and they do this with these different practices and stuff. And just they're bringing in all of this knowledge. And so when I walk into the classroom, I feel like I'm teaching the whole world. I'm teaching a whole globe here with students from all over who can bring in their experiences. It reminds me how God is not the God of just one nation, but God's love and God's kingdom knows no borders, and how there's going to be one day where he creates a new heaven and a new earth, which is our hope that we're looking forward to. And we're going to have people from every tribe, tongue, and nation there. And I feel like I already have a glimpse of that when I walk into the classroom to teach. And that's just such a privilege.
Harrison, was kind of an interesting story with him. He had always had this love for science, and he thought, yeah, this is what I want to do as my career. And he also had thought, missions might be cool, but no, I'm a science teacher. There's no way that I could go into missions or anything like that. And the Lord led through meeting different people and meeting different situations that he got into where people said, well, yeah, we need science teachers as missionaries because there's all these kids out there. And he hadn't even thought about this fact that you can go out with all these different skills that you say, well, I'm not a Bible teacher. I can't go off and be a missionary somewhere. And there's this huge need that we had for science teachers. And we have, every year, we have needs at Black Forest Academy. Two of the biggest ones that we're just always short of are male residence assistants. So people that are sort of just out of college, guys that want to come over and help in the dorms. And another thing is in our maintenance department, because people think, well, I'm a mechanic or I'm in construction. That's not a missionary job. And yet we have, I don't know the number exactly, but I think they said we have 15 buildings that need to be maintained and a huge fleet of cars that need to be maintained. And in order to keep the prices low for the missionary kids and for the missionary families, the staff at Black Forest Academy are all missionaries. And so that makes it so the school can be affordable for them to come. And this next video talks about a businessman who retired and then realized, hey, I could still use my time to serve at Black Forest Academy. So if you guys could play the next slide.
I'm just going to put a little bit of information here. We're going to say more information in the church service, but just so that you know as you're listening to these, we have 206 students in our high school. High school is grade 9 to 12, and we only board kids that are in the high school. Most of the students come just for grade 11 and 12 and in our boarding program. So we had 112 students in the 6 residences this last year. And the other 96 or whatever it is were home students. So they were staff kids, they were kids of missionaries who live locally. Different missions have moved their European offices to Condern so that the kids of the people that work at the European offices can go to BFA. So we have a large home student base. And then our grades 5 to 8 in the middle school, they're all because they live locally with their parents. And the elementary bilingual school, it's all because they're staff kids or local missionaries. So.
Yeah, that one.
A lot of people ask me, after a 40-year career in research and development in science, why would I come to a small Christian school like BFA? And frankly, it was the absolute best decision the Lord has ever led us into. Those years of research were fun, but nowhere near as rewarding as the opportunity to come and minister. And I had been involved in youth ministry for so many years along with my career. At one point, the Lord just sort of convinced my wife and I that He could marry our passion and love for young people with our skills and talents given in a secular career. I'd never taught school before, and so coming here was difficult. The community here is wonderful. It is warm and receiving. Young people and old alike share a common purpose and joy, and so it's easy to live here. Difficult to learn the language, yes, but the Germans are welcoming and loving. But in particular, I came as a non-teacher and began to appreciate the skill and the expertise that we have here at BFA. I went to a high school, I was given a scholarship to a high school that was the richest high school in the U.S. Without that scholarship, I never would have gotten in. And we had some of the best teachers available anywhere. And I can honestly say that they changed my viewpoint and my life. But it was mostly in terms of academics. Here I see the same sort of thing happening with the excellent teachers that we have here, who continually God raises up to bring to minister to these young people. And I'm watching as young people's lives are being transformed by God in ways that I didn't even receive in the wealthiest high school in the country. So I would encourage anyone who is a professional, who has skills that are valuable in the secular world, to consider using that for the Lord, even in your older years, to come and serve at a place like BFA.
All right, so I think that we'll just sort of open it up now. If any of you guys have questions, so Eric has a mic and you can pass it around. So we'd be glad to, if you have anything that you're curious about. What's that?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
What kind of trees are those, the bigger trees that we saw in the...
What's that?
Yeah, always interested in that. And then the other question is, how much has this school grown since you've been there? If I remember right, when you first came back, probably the first time back, that there's only like 1 or 2 buildings there. It looks like things have expanded quite a bit.
Yeah, so we had when I first got there, got to think back a while now, but the school is relatively small, and it was the vast majority of the staff at that point were Canadian. It was just a small school from this Canadian mission that had founded it, and Eastern Europe had opened up about shortly before we got there. And these missionaries came in, and there came a point where their kids then, all these new missionaries that come into Eastern Europe, their kids came to high school age, and the school really grew right around 2000 or so in those years. And since then, it's basically, we came to a point where we were actually full. We couldn't even accept any more, partly because of the staff, because it's always a bit of a challenge to get enough staff there. And then the school has kind of leveled out now, and we've stayed at this higher level of around 250 or so students.
What was it when you first started? What was the number?
Oh, can you remember? Yeah, I remember we fit the entire middle school in one van. So we had 8 kids in the middle school.
Now there's 60 in the middle school.
Yeah. So that's, It's probably doubled during that. What's that?
One of those great big trees in that video.
Oh, yeah, so, and what was your first question? I couldn't quite hear.
What kind of trees are they?
Oh, mostly beech. And so it's beech forest. Then someone actually brought in a bunch of Douglas firs and planted, though you can see this one clump of Douglas fir, which is not native to that area. And John Sutter, who actually founded Sacramento, is from our town. And he actually brought back from California 5 sequoias. And so scattered around the town, there's these 5 sequoias, which are totally out of context, but you can definitely see them growing up through the town. But yeah, it's almost all beech trees.
Do they grow well? The fir
Not as well as they do in California, in the redwoods area. But they haven't died, and they're 150, 200 years old, so.
Are all the students proficient in English since they're from so many different countries? Is that the language that you guys use?
Yeah, so the school is actually an American high school curriculum, and we then, I think it's kind of like school districts here. You have your curriculum, you get it approved by these accrediting agencies from the states, and so the language of instruction is all in English, and the kids come in, they have to have a certain minimum ability, but then even if they're kids of Americans, that they may have gone through a French school, and so they've done all of their academic work in French, their academic English might not be that great. Or if a lot of these Korean kids will come in and they have a basic knowledge of English. And so we have an English language learning program that helps them, and then also just the general English classes to get them up to speed for hitting university over here. And we've had people say that the English department at BFA, even our kids have said this, just they got to their freshman year of college and they're like, whoa, this is much easier than my senior year of BFA. But, yeah, so it's all in English, and we specifically try to train them for American universities.
When did you make the jump to American high school standards instead of Canadian?
That was actually in about the year 2000. And it was founded by people from Saskatchewan. And so the first teacher at BFA was from Saskatchewan. It was kind of a one-room schoolhouse. And she brought with her curriculum. And so we just stuck with that. And as the number of Canadian students went down, the number of American students went up, we're kind of like, well, this still works. And then the province of Saskatchewan gives out tests where the entire schools take it on the same day, a standardized test. And we had been taking it the same day they did in Saskatchewan, and then Saskatchewan said, no, you need to take it the same time we take it. And BFA, at that point, BFA said, you know what, we don't need to stay with this curriculum anymore. And so they made the switch to being an American curriculum.
All right, we've pretty well used up our time. We got folks gaggled out front, and the internet will break here soon. Catch up with these guys and ask them more questions, find out about what they're doing, and then hopefully everybody remembered that we announced potluck last week, and you're planning on sticking around and eating and talking to them afterwards. Nod your heads, you remembered.
Thank you very much. It's a good chance to talk to you here.